My name is Megan de Villiers. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at Endeavour. We're a non-profit organisation that supports entrepreneurs. We support high-impact entrepreneurs. Is that we look for somebody who has a very unique business model, product or service. These enterprise learning circles are basically to inspire you, to get you to think about growing your business and give you the tools in order to grow your business.
But we again delighted to see you all, a lot of familiar faces again, of people who keep coming back. Tonight we have a very, very interesting topic, franchising. We talked about different growth models, and franchising was seen as one category of growth that entrepreneurs can look into. And the interest around franchising as an option for growth was so great that we decided to have a session specifically on franchising, and I think Carlo was partly responsible for that because he was one of the panelists at that session. And today is the day when we're going to sort of explore all the aspects around franchising. To do that, we have a very distinguished panel tonight. We have, perhaps let me start with my extreme right, Brenda Macqueen, who's got a very sort of extensive and distinguished career in franchising with a number of roles that she's played over the years. On Brenda's left, Eric Parker, who's also a very well-experienced person, just business leader as a whole, but in franchising particularly in the past few years. To my right, Carlo Gonzaga, which some of you know. Carlo is one of the Endeavour entrepreneurs. You might have recognized him from the video. Could you tell us about what are some of the challenges and pitfalls that you've noticed, specifically in South Africa, around franchising and the environment in the country?
I have spent a lot of time on the consulting side, but indeed, as Malik said, I do spend most of my days training either the franchisee or the franchisor staff. The franchisee is the person who owns the individual outlet and who has taken a license from the franchisor, and the franchisor is someone like Carlo, who has really pioneered a new brand and has wanted growth for expansion and has used the franchisees for that expansion. The one thing that a franchisor has to do is to make sure that there is profitability for their franchisees and that they do make the profit. So if we have got lack of franchise training, financial management training, if we've got a franchisor who is not focusing on the financial management either, then we could have a potential disaster. Sometimes franchisees are successful by default as opposed to by design. So it's not because they actually know what they are doing on a financial way. It's because they opened their door, the brand carried them, and luckily lots of customers came in the door, and hopefully they've been disciplined and haven't spent a lot of the money.
So do you have some guidelines, especially for the entrepreneurs, around when is it good to go into a franchising model for growth? And then also perhaps if you could talk a little bit about, Brenda mentioned the psychology aspect from the Australian speaker, if you could speak about what type of person does it take also to sort of become a good franchisor?
Franchising is South Africa's best kept secret. We actually have a fantastic marketing tool that is totally misunderstood, badly implemented, and in South Africa there's an amazing ignorance about franchising. Now, let me just talk about one or two myths and then we'll get into you. First of all, franchising is not just for food. Then the other thing about franchising is that we can adapt it. So what I'm really trying to say in franchising is there's not just one formula that will work for everybody. What you were saying is, why should I franchise my business? If you've got a great concept, you have many different ways of rolling it out. You can have company-owned stores, you could franchise, you can do a number of different methods. For me, there's a couple of key things. The first thing is a franchisee will always outperform an employee. If you're rolling out, you don't have to only franchise. You can have a combination of company-owned outlets in the major areas. You could have joint ventures like we've done at Dis-Chem, and then you could even franchise in the outlying areas. Now, many corporates have what they think is incentives, share option schemes, and they say to you, if you do well, you'll go to the World Cup. And if you don't do well, they say, well, I'd rather watch it on TV anyway. A fantastic return on investment with franchising. You get a better quality person as a franchisee. Once you've trained them, they stay longer. You don't have to go back to training. You've got marketing contribution coming in, so by getting a big critical mass, you grow the brand much quicker, which means you've got the asset because you hold the actual brand to that. The one downside is if you run franchising badly, it's terrible. Okay? It's harder to get divorced, or it's harder to get rid of a franchisee than getting divorced. There's definitely two different types of people. There's an entrepreneur that would never make a franchisee, and there's a franchisee that enjoys being a franchisee because he actually is a semi-entrepreneur. He wants to be part of a bigger picture. There's a lovely definition of franchising. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. An entrepreneur, if you were going to start your business as a franchisee, you will never make a good franchisee. A metric test that we developed with a company called SHL, and we can actually do that test. It costs about 1,500 Rand, and we can measure the competencies to see if you will make a good franchisee or not. And a good franchisee is somebody that's got a strong sales and marketing ability, but isn't that out-and-out entrepreneur.
When you franchise, I think something that most people don't realize is you give away ownership. You could have owned that store, but now you don't. Unless you go and buy that store back, you will never get the potential of that 12% plus whatever you could be making in the bottom line, which could range in the food business anything from 15 to 25%. I often think that before guys franchise their business, you must view it in the context of the fact that you may actually be giving away equity in your business. A lot of people think that it's, the franchisor sits here and the franchisee sits here, but you sort of sit roughly here. You're at different ends of a spectrum, but you're very close. We manage them because we want to try and make their business profitable. And I think if you go into franchising for any reason other than that, because you want the joining fees up front, you think it's a quick way to make money, or incidentally, if you think it's an easy way, you think that just getting the 12% is easy, you're hugely, hugely mistaken. We only made our first 1 cent of profit after 4 years in scooters. You do have a big growth curve, but you've got to be committed for a very long-term path if you want to go into franchising.
We like to say encourage rather than force. Franchising is a persuasive system as opposed to a forcing and encouraging. If you show a franchisee that you can make him bottom line, then they will be far more compliant. And I think it's strong management and persuasive approach as opposed to forcing. Any franchisor that forces and is dogmatic will find that they don't have compliance. If we think that we can't open many stores in South Africa, then we must not franchise, because as Carlo said, stick to owning the equity of the store yourself, because a few franchisees giving you a little bit of royalties is never going to make you a sophisticated enough head office to go and support and service those franchisees. The trap that we fall into is because we're going through this pain of also not eating ourselves and being nearly bankrupt ourselves, we tend to choose easy franchisees and interviews, or franchisees who throw their money in your face. So it's very tempting to take that franchisee on board, because he's showing you an upfront fee of somewhere between 100,000 Rand that could really help pay your rent that month. So it's hard to choose the right franchisee, and it's got to be someone who goes through a profile of tests, someone who doesn't want to be the boss, someone who's going to work with staff and grow staff.
You need to pilot first. You can't start franchising until you've got a successful company store, and those 2 or 3 company stores should generate enough income for you to run the head office and not make a loss.
Even the compliance part, it all becomes easy if you define in your own mind as a franchisor what your business is about.
Someone else that Carlo knows well, Craig McKenzie, said that the time to franchise your business is when you feel you don't need to franchise. So you're almost so successful as a company store, you don't, as a company operator, you don't even need to franchise because things are going so well. But at the same time, someone else, Brenda, says that if you franchise and you've got a hole in your business, when you franchise and multiply, that's going to be many holes. So before you franchise one, you say very clearly you are not allowed to do other businesses, because this is exactly what we're franchising. If you piloted well, you'd know that he doesn't need to do anything else. This is the business and he can make enough profit there. When franchisees want to diversify and start saying, can I sell Omar's fudge and I was there doing the roof, why can't I do the wall, is when they're not seeing enough value from what you're giving to them and not enough profit from what you're giving to them.